It's Toronto's podcast on the Canada's Podcast Network.
Today, we're going to meet Marc Lafleur, an accomplished entrepreneur and the founder of True Local, an online marketplace that connects health-conscious consumers to local suppliers. So, Marc, welcome. Why don't we kick off by, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do and why you're here, kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Marc Lafleur. I'm the CEO and co-founder of True Local. We started True Local about 3.5 years ago as a consumer solution for the problem that people were having of trying to find high quality, locally sourced meat products. So a lot of the companies that you see that are focusing on food are really centered around the meal kit industry. So you've got lots of money flowing in there, hundreds of millions of dollars are being invested on meal kits. And then on the other side, and for those of you that don't know, the meal kits are pretty straightforward. You know, you go online, you order a meal and they'll send you all the ingredients for it. And then the other side is a lot of grocery delivery companies. So you've got companies like Instacart, DoorDash, all these different things. And once again, I was starting to talk about the billions of dollars being invested in there to make it really easy to shop with conventional grocers. But nobody was really focusing on small local farming, small local suppliers, local butchers. So we saw the problem that people were looking for this type of product. And we also saw that there was nobody really looking to take a tech approach to it. So the solution to that was an online subscription box. So True Local lets people go online. They can see all the farmers, suppliers, butchers in their area, and then create a customized box that gets delivered to their house whenever they want. It could be every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, once a month, whatever works for them.
So how long have you been an entrepreneur? When did you kind of dive into this, adventurous world? Venturous as well, I guess.
Yeah, so actually this is my third project. This is the one that really got some legs and took off, but I guess it would have been since 2012. I was at the University of Waterloo, didn't have any concept of business, didn't know anything in terms of digital marketing, how to scale a business, hiring. I was just a kid. I was there, having a good time on the weekends. I realized this was during the time that Snapchat got offered $3 billion on Facebook. So that kind of really opened my world to understanding that, wow, like there's an entire industry on this. And I felt so naive and ignorant, not even knowing it existed, but I couldn't understand how an app could have a business side attached to it. So that was, we're looking 7 years ago now. And that was kind of my foray into it. And since then, we've created an instant messaging app. I've created a sharing economy platform. And then that was about 2 to 3 years of learning the ins and outs of how to run a business. So everything from everything from institutional rounds of investment, everything from hiring, choosing your co-founders, learning how to do digital marketing, project management, all that type of stuff is what led to True Local today.
So why dive into entrepreneurship? Are you wired differently than everybody else, or are entrepreneurs wired differently?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know if wired differently is the right term, but you definitely are a certain type of individual, for better or for worse. I think that the qualities and traits that make an entrepreneur, or at least a successful entrepreneur, the way they are actually bad in some other categories. So I think to be an entrepreneur, be into business, you've got to be relatively aggressive. You got to be willing to go after opportunities. Everybody likes to say that being in business is a marathon, not a sprint. I'm the complete opposite. I think that being an entrepreneur is a series of sprints. It's the opposite. You don't want it to be a marathon because you don't want to be slogging along at the same pace, not really overly exerting yourself, but keeping your energy. When you spot an opportunity, you want to sprint towards that opportunity as fast as possible. So I look at being an entrepreneur as a series of sprints, and that kind of goes to the bit of being aggressive and kind of jumping on stuff like that. On the other side too, I really think that you've got to be willing to kind of get beaten up a lot. And some people aren't really interested in that, and I don't blame them. I think that the happiest people I know are people that are working 9 to 5, to be honest. A lot of consistency in life, a lot of stability, job security, all that stuff is there. The people that I know that are in the business world are constantly getting thrown in the mud. It's not all you really hear is the glory stories. You don't really hear like the come up that it took to get there. And on top of that too, you're gonna have to have that mentality of never giving up. So even if it takes 1 year, if it takes 5 years, I think the greatest sign of any entrepreneur is his ability to. You'll hear it all the time. You have friends that they're kind of talking to them every 6 months. You know how it is. It's 2019. People don't talk that much anymore. And every 6 months, you kind of hear this person going through like one hardship, then another hardship, then another hardship in his business. Yet 2 years, he's still doing the same thing, still pushing it forward. And then eventually you're going to hear how that company became an overnight success.
Yeah, overnight is generally 3 to 5 years if it's gonna happen. Doesn't really happen much before 3 years. So
Yeah,
that's my experience, anyways.
I would definitely say that's a pretty accurate statement.
You know, why Toronto? We were chatting before. You said you came from Cornwall, and then you went to Waterloo. Why Toronto? You know, I mean, what are the benefits of doing business in Toronto?
Well, you know what? So we're based out of Kitchener right now, and I think that just being in the GTA, being in that hub in general, is just a great. It's the mecca of Canada at the end of the day for specifically on the side in the finance.
I live in Hamilton, so yeah, I mean,
Exactly.
it really goes from what I guess almost Kingston down to London, basically.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So we're on the same page. Yeah. So it's not just Toronto. There's a lot going on there. But yeah, coming up from Cornwall, Cornwall taught me a lot and told me kind of where I wanted to go in life and what I wanted to do. And ironically, we get a ton of support out of Cornwall. So I always like to make sure that people realize some good things going on in Cornwall. And then when I did that, when I graduated high school, I went to the University of Waterloo, which complete contrast to where I grew up. And once again, I think that if I didn't go to the University of Waterloo, I wouldn't be as into business as I am now. The entire ecosystem, not just the university, but Waterloo, Kitchener, the whole corridor is 100% primed and built to help sustain startups. So for us, actually, when I graduated, I moved out to London. So I was working full time in London. And then when we started to decide to start True Local, I knew I needed to get closer back to that ecosystem. So we actually moved to Milton, started the business in Milton. And then once we started scaling, we went back to Kitchener. To kind of take advantage of the community and that Toronto Kitchener corridor.
Okay, that's great. So some of our best ideas come when we least expect them. Now, how do you disconnect? How do you recharge? How do you get inspired? Because you do typically we're engrossed in our business, so you have to step aside to find the new idea to solve the problem. Is there a special place you go or not?
Yeah, honestly, if you have the answer to that, I would be more than happy to get that from you, because that's something that I struggle with on a regular. I think a lot of people who are in business do. I don't think there's a one size fits all approach. I
actually do it on my holidays.
Oh yeah.
I try and take time off every quarter, and my wife hates me because I take my biggest issues along with me and solve them while I'm on holiday.
Yeah, well, you know what? Like, I kind of get that vibe as well. So, like, it's hard. Like, for me to go on vacation, ironically, I think it stresses me out more than being here, just kind of being away. But there's a difference between being productive and seeking out good ideas. And I think people try to mesh the two. Now, if you're trying to be productive, I think going on vacation is going to be stressful. Not being around, not being able to have access to your email, not being able to push the needle forward on a daily basis, that's difficult. Once again, that all kind of falls in the productivity category, and that's difficult if you're away. However, one of the side effects of that is that your brain is always running. Like, you're always go, you're always pushing things forward, which doesn't necessarily leave a lot of room for creativity. I think that if you're always on, you become more efficient. I do believe that. I think that the day-to-day processes and the things that you need to get done and your to-do list and your tasks and your goals can be done more efficiently when you're on for longer periods of time, just because of the fact that you're repeating the same motions and you're going through it. However, when it comes to getting a brand new idea, or if you're stuck on something, I think that if you're always on, there's not a lot of room for new creativity or new thoughts to come in. So that's where I see the benefit of a vacation or unplugging. So if you're looking for inspiration, if you're stuck on a specific problem, like, it could be a major problem, I think unplugging is the way to go, definitely. And that could be anything, anything that just gives you genuine happiness. It could be going to a Raptors game, or it could be going down south for a week. It could be, renting some cars and racing around the track, whatever just gets you unplugged and out of your current grind and out of your current cycle. I think that'll help with big ideas and problems. But once again, when it comes to actually being productive and getting things done, I think that the longer you're plugged in, the more efficient you become. And once again, that's what, like I said, not one size fits all. That's what works for me. It's all I can really speak to.
I mean, we're all different. I mean,
yeah.
thank goodness. Tell me about the vision you have for the business. You've just expanded it, I think, into Alberta and BC.
We did.
How's that going? What's the longer term vision?
Yeah, so 2018 was actually a really exciting year for us because it's the first time we started taking the true local model outside of Ontario. And the whole true local model focuses around people within a specific province should be eating products that are sourced and raised within that province. So we decided that this isn't something that's unique to Ontario. We can take this model and expand it into different provinces, into different states one day, and just kind of trying to get people to shop from their local suppliers rather than going all over the place. So 2018 is when we decided to start taking it across Canada. The vision for us is to absolutely be the one-stop shop for people looking to get more options when it comes to meat, for people that are looking to shop directly with local farms but don't have the ability to drive out there. We want True Local to be the go-to. So people will go to your groceries regularly, but you'll get your meat from True Local. And I think we're doing that really well because the business is growing. We're rocking and rolling. We're also doing a lot more with the farmers and the suppliers to help get them online as well. So the more farms and suppliers we're able to bring on board, the more products we're able to get, the more customers we're getting, the better service we're able to provide them. So yeah, we definitely want to be the biggest players in Canada for that, and just try to connect as many people as possible to people within their suppliers and farmers in their area.
What are the top three things on your bucket list, vision board, whatever the heck you call it, kind of thing at the moment?
For True Local?
No, just for True Local, for you, Marc.
For me, yeah, honestly, I want to continue to scale the team. I think right now with True Local, we're actually getting into 100% recyclable packaging. So that was one of our goals that we were.
I was gonna ask you about that because your industry sector has been getting hammered on delivery is very wasteful on sort of materials side of things.
And it definitely is. And I think it's funny because you look at it, and I think things back in the day when only a few people were doing them, people don't really care about the environmental impact, and they just want to get something delivered to their door quickly. But now, with the significant increase of online shopping, you start seeing this, and you see it in the recycling bins all over the place now, right? They're completely packed. So when we started the business, it was never really on our radar until year one. And then in year one, we started doing a lot of research and trying to figure out how we could get a 100% recyclable solution to customers without increasing the price, and that would actually keep products frozen for 48 hours. And that's the biggest thing, is that a lot of people like to ship products frozen for 24 hours, but you start running into serious issues there. So ironically today, we've actually been testing in Alberta and BC the recyclable packaging, and today we did a full rollout in Ontario as well. So all True Local orders are being sent out with 100% recyclable packaging as of today. It just so happened that we're doing this podcast at the same time.
That's really good. Good. We've got news on our podcast. That's
good. Really
good. Based on what you know now, what wouldn't you have done when you were starting the business?
What wouldn't I have done? We made a lot of mistakes, like tons. And like I said, there's a lot of times you want to just give up. And a lot of times these mistakes were kind of game changing. I'm a huge believer that everybody is where they're supposed to be at that current time. I know it sounds so cliche, but I'm a huge believer in that. I think everything happens for a reason. I think that even some of the serious mistakes that we've made, had we done them differently, maybe we wouldn't be where we are today. There's probably an argument to be made, would we be further? But there's also an argument to be made, we probably wouldn't. There's a chance that we wouldn't be where we're at. I think for practical advice, I would have definitely gotten accountants way sooner. Myself and my co-founder, we're good on the data side when it comes to numbers, but just dealing with accountants and all that type of stuff is always a headache. So I think that's a big thing. I think if you, after a year, if you're actually scaling and you start getting into 6-7 figures, you have to get an accountant, because we had to go through massive headaches, trying to do all of it retroactively. Yeah. So that would be something. I'm a huge believer. One thing it's the opposite of wanting to change it, but we've always developed our own technology. So we run our own website. We don't use Shopify. We don't use WordPress. We don't use anything like that. So not saying something we wouldn't do. I'm actually advocating for this. If you're looking to build a long-term business that is not just selling one product, like with us, we have the ability to customize and all that. Right. Yeah. I'd say you have to invest in having your own platform, just from a competitive landscape. The last thing you need is someone going out there and copying your platform. If they're going to copy it, at least make them do something custom. Mm-hmm. So that's something that I look back on quite a bit. Honest to God, I can't think of anything that I would change right now. I'm very happy with where the business is.
Well, if you had to give a piece of advice to somebody just starting up, someone that's 6 years back from you, kind of thing, what would it be? What's that gem that you would say?
Yeah. One of the best books I think that's ever been written, period, is From Good to Great. And one of the initial concepts, yeah, it's a great book. The whole concept is pretty much taking businesses that factoring in or accounting for almost every possible variable that could confound this study. But the whole concept is businesses that went from being good businesses, according to the market, that then went to being great businesses, also sustained that. So they didn't go from good to great back to good. And they didn't also just go industry specific. So I don't need to get into all the details in that, but long story short, businesses that went from good to great, one of the main takeaways is, make sure to have the right people in place. And I think that is something early on that people sacrifice a lot because everyone's really excited and everyone's saying yes. And when you're signing contracts, everyone's like, yeah, sure, no problem. I'm down with this. I'm down with that. And then that's even if you get to the point of doing contracts. A lot of people that I know are saying, no, we'll just deal with it later once we get our money in the door. And I can't stress that enough. Like I call them, long story short, I would just recommend do these conversations early on, have these contracts signed early on, because that is what's going to dissuade people from thinking they can pull stuff down the line. We've been very fortunate. I've worked with all friends. The first 12 employees, I think, are all friends and family. And that worked out really, really well to help grow the business. But I see it all the time. Just people that want to push off contracts, push off negotiations. I would do that as soon as possible. And then once again, if you can just focus on getting the right people on the bus, forget where they're sitting. Right? Like different spots, different everything. We can figure out where they're going to sit later, but just get the right people on the bus. That is a huge piece of advice that I think is really important for early stage entrepreneurs. That's from like a more high level practical, but just other things too. Just go do it. I think that we do a lot of consulting now and focus on trying to help entrepreneurs in that, $1 to $5 million range, all that type of stuff. Just people like places that we've already been, like we've been there. So I think with entrepreneurs, they have a million ideas. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. If you're thinking about one idea, guaranteed you probably have 8 more. And I think that there's this sort of thought process that if I sit on it, an idea is going to kind of pop up in my head, and I'm gonna decide that this is the one that I want to do. I'm a huge believer that they're all good ideas. I can almost attest to that. Really, what you got to focus on is actually just executing on that idea. So that to me is something that would really help entrepreneurs. Just go ahead and actually drill down on it. Pick an idea, just go after it. If it fails, no problem, pick up another one. But instead of dwelling on it for too long, just go ahead and actually pull the trigger on something.
So we'll just do some rapid fire ones. Don't think too much, just answer.
Okay.
If you weren't doing what you were doing now, what would you be doing instead?
Yeah, I would be focused on creating services and leveraging technology to help online content creators, online course creators. Okay. I think that so that's it. As if it's rapid fire, then I'll leave it at that.
What book are you currently reading, listening to? And is there any books, we talked about Good Great already, but any other books that you'd recommend to the audience?
Yeah, definitely. I just finished reading 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson. I recommend that to anybody with an asterisk that if you're willing for self-improvement and you're, understand that everything that happens to you is your doing for good or for worse, I think it's one of the best books out there. The Obstacle is the Way is a great book. Once again, same sort of concept for entrepreneurs. No matter what happens to you, life isn't fair, but you got to find a way to react to that. Right. Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz. Absolutely amazing book. I'd highly recommend it. And one more that I'd recommend, Rocket Fuel. So once again, talking for early stage entrepreneurs, Rocket Fuel talks about how every business has a 1 and a 2, a visionary and an integrator. And a lot of people try to run a business not having clear identified roles. But when these 2 individual roles get together and understand their roles, it's like rocket fuel. It's a great book for anybody looking to start a business.
Are you a morning or a night person?
Morning, definitely.
It's funny about that, but so many people are. If you had to pick one word to describe yourself, what would it be and why would it be?
Stubborn. I'm very stubborn. I think on the hopefully on the good side of it, but I use the word specifically stubborn because I think some people would think the bad side. I don't really take no for an answer on the good side of things. I'm very stubborn. If I don't get a call back or if I hear a no, I'm just going to kind of keep hitting my head on the door until I can get back in. So I would say stubborn for good and for worse.
Okay. what's keeping you up at night?
Honestly, right now, nothing. I think right now with where the business is 3.5 months into it, or sorry, 3.5 years into it, we're in a really, really good place. We've got a great team in place. We've got a lot of new things launching. We've got our new website coming out, recyclable packaging. The business is growing. It's the holiday season. We're on a really, really good path. So right now, as of today, nothing's keeping me up at night, which is exciting.
So what's your most favorite place in the world?
Favorite place in the world? I think right now I'd have to say Barcelona. I really, really, really have enjoyed Barcelona.
Why Barcelona?
Pardon?
Why Barcelona?
I've been there a couple times, and just every time I go there, I just have a great time. I went with a couple friends a few years ago. I've been with my girlfriend, and 2 completely different trips, and had an amazing time both times. The weather's amazing. The people are great. I like the city like quite a bit.
Okay. So last but not least, we'll do the tropical island thing, which I know you've listened to a few of these podcasts. So there's a small tropical island in the middle of the ocean, which is where you'd expect it to be. Only one phone booth, no internet. We drop you off there with no technology, no laptop, no phone. At any time, you can use the phone booth and call us to come and pick you up. How long would you last, and what would you do?
I think I would last longer than the average, but not as long as someone who's a seasoned outdoorsman. I've just now recently started spending more time outside. Being out west, having operations out west, and spend some more times out in the Rockies and doing a lot more hikes and doing full day trips. So I think I'd be somewhat self-sufficient, but eventually I'd probably be tapping.
Okay. Hey, Marc, super interview. Thank you. Some really good observations there. How can people listening get you online?
Yeah, well, if you want to get me online because you like the product and you want to get your meat delivered to your place, you would just check out www.truelocal.ca. We actually have our holiday boxes on sale right now too. So if you're tired of getting people, a coffee maker that they're just going to regift, you can get people a $99 box of steaks, comes with a note and everything. If you want to connect personally, LinkedIn. I love connecting with potential entrepreneurs or existing entrepreneurs or successful entrepreneurs and just chatting about anything and everything. I'm really excited about data informatics right now, surprisingly, really trying to get the business more data informed. So any sort of data stacks that you want to talk about, anything at all, I'm always looking for advice on that. And then on Instagram, you can catch us at TrueLocal, TRULOCAL.
Okay. Is there anything I've missed that you kind of want to pass on to other entrepreneurs? I mean, I try to cover most things, but there's so much to talk about.
Actually, I wrote an article recently, and like I said, I like talking about this just because I think that when it comes to being an entrepreneur, everyone talks about the glory side, and what that causes is entrepreneurs to get started, and then the first time they run into a roadblock, they're like, oh my God, I'm doing it wrong. How did this guy become an overnight success and all that type of stuff? And I think that's kind of what the cascading effect of glorifying being an entrepreneur is. I kind of like to talk about the reality of it, at least in my experience. Once again, this is all kind of stuff that's been relevant to me, but I wrote an article, which is just 4 tips for any first-time founders, kind of just getting prepared and things that you can expect being a first-time founder. And it's on my LinkedIn as well. So I would say that, if there's any extra tidbits people are looking for, they relate to the story that they've heard on the podcast and want to hear a little bit more about my insights on it, they can go ahead and check out that article.
Well, that's great. That's good. Well, once again, Marc, thanks for coming on Canada's podcast. Really appreciate it. Some great advice, and hey, we'll hopefully talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.